Hey everyone, I'm Mike Pieczek from So You Want to Write, and we help writers improve their work and get published by connecting them with experts. Today I'm chatting with Jessica Reino, Senior Literary Agency at Metamorphosis Literary Agency. She's also a 3-time published author and a former professional editor and author coach. Jessica, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I've known you for a while now, and I know that you've worn many hats in the publishing world over the last decade. But let's start with your work as a literary agent at Metamorphosis. A question I always want to know the answer to is, what are the most common mistakes you see writers making?
That's a great question. So I'll speak to just querying writers in general because I think that would be the most helpful for writers.
Right.
So when you're just starting out, even established authors, you tend to get, the hesitancy about your own craft or the work that you're working on. And a lot of times people are comparing their publishing path and journey to everyone else or everyone in their writing group. And then it's really about managing your work, your journey, where you want your work to go, and be on your own path. So I think that's a huge mistake that I think it's a lot of mindset in there too. It's just having to do, write what you want to write, edit it the way you see fit, depending on if you do get an agent, if you're working with a smaller publisher, they'll tailor it to whatever market you want to play for, and have your work published in whatever medium, but it is different for everyone. So I think that's a major roadblock to people come in and they have certain expectations, which is great, and like, well, I talked to my friend on Twitter or Facebook and they're doing this, and it's like, no, that's not how this works, and that's my job as an agent. So that's why I do the Twitter chats, because it's just a good way to get information out to the masses that is correct. So
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I've heard that as well, and I know there's a lot of maybe not so great information out there. And why don't we jump to Twitter since you mentioned it?
Sure.
I know that you're a fixture there, and you were responsible for this very popular the Writer Zen hashtag. How important is it for an author to build their platform, and is Twitter the right place to do it?
I always counsel authors that if it's not something that you can see yourself doing, it's not worth doing, because for some authors, if you're a nonfiction author, absolutely essential, you need to have a huge platform, or you're not going to be traditionally published. That's just how it is now. If you're a fiction author, you don't have to have a social media presence to get a book deal or an agent, but yes, it is definitely going to help you. It is not going to hurt you. But honestly, if you have, you get your Twitter, your Instagram, Facebook, and you're not using it, that can almost be worse than than using it and not utilizing it. So I would say nonfiction authors, absolutely essential. Fiction authors, you can find something that works for you. You can work with the marketing teams, you can work with your agency, your agent, if you choose that route, but it's not as essential.
So if you're going to do social media, you really ought to put your time and energy into it. Then there's no point in having 200 followers in a publisher.
Yeah, that's just and then as an agent, if I have querying writers, I do look at your social media, your online presence, to make sure that what you're putting out there is something that I would admire, other work. But yeah, if there's nothing, then you're like, why is there nothing? What happened? Are they going a different route? Which is fine. Sometimes it takes a long time to get back to authors. Unfortunately, I wish I could get back like in the same week, but it takes time, and and then you do wonder, like, oh, did something happen? What's going on with them? Are they choosing another manuscript, another path? And it's just, if it's in it, and I also, with my own authors too on my list, some of them love social media, and that's wonderful, and others, it is such a source of stress that I'm like, my whole thing is that your job first and foremost is to write. Like that is what you're doing. But if it's causing that much stress, it is not worth doing. Table it. You will have to go out there and do some sort of marketing for your work. Some sort of social media presence would be good, but I mean, it's not necessary for fiction.
That's good to know, because I'm in the boat in the category of not wanting to do social media. I dabble, but you find once you don't get the thousands of followers in the first month, you're like, oh, maybe I'm not going to invest so much time there anymore. And I guess, it does take some consistency. So it's good to hear that it's not necessary to get your name and your book out there.
Yeah.
I know that you were also a professional editor with Panda Moon Publishing,
Mhm.
and working with an editor is something that probably every writer will do at some point, whether it's hiring their own or going through a traditional publishing house. I'm curious, what do you think makes for a successful relationship between a writer and his or her editor?
I love that. I think that's such a great question. And as an agent too, I keep in mind working styles of my authors as well as the editors, because that is important. I think it's really important that people understand that an editor is not there to change your book at all. They are there to enhance your work and to get the best product out of you, which is why, author coaching, it's like it essentially is a coach. So your coach, in any sports team is not going to go out there and play the game for you. That is all you. The players deserve all the accolades. Same thing with writers, but the editors, they're there to play devil's advocate. They're there to be like, okay, well, you have this art going on here. Could you also add this? Or could you, develop that a little bit deeper? Can you, hone a little bit more on what's going on here? There are, sometimes I get a manuscript and then it's just so many elements to it. So then you have to break it down and be like, okay, this is what's in the manuscript. We have, it's speculative fiction, but then you have horror elements, paranormal elements, romance elements. Do you want to choose one and enhance that? So it's all, you really do work very closely with your editor, and they are there to just pull out the best pieces of your work. And I think that that's super important.
I think so too. I think just sharing your work in general, especially with someone who knows what they're talking about, who has seen a few manuscripts before and maybe has had some training in this, that's very helpful. I know that with my first novel, I suffered from the kitchen sink syndrome, where I tried to put everything into that
Yeah.
novel, and for me, it wasn't an editor, but it was a writing mentor of mine, and that person was able to help me focus, and that
Yes.
made for a much better story, right?
Yep, I think that is such a great, and I've heard that come up recently in conversations with my authors too. It's like that is, part of an agent and editor's job is to just focus you on, what project you're trying to work on, what you want to accomplish, and how to help get you there. I guess is essentially what they're for.
A lot of sense. And I know there are alternatives to hiring an editor, which can an investment. The alpha and beta readers, right, makes a lot of
Yes.
sense to start sharing your work, I would say, as early as possible. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely, essential, is to get, readers out there. And I would caution those. So if you are writing a novel, that your readers also read that genre, because, sometimes it can be someone's available to read it, but if they're not, they don't read in that genre, they're not going to give you constructive or,
Yeah,
feedback that would be helpful to revise it to where you need it to be. But yes, I think that they can pull things out that you don't realize, that your message is coming across a certain way, and then you realize, oh, okay, nope, that's not what I intended. I need to go back and rework that. And they're just another level of eyes that can look on the page to give you
absolutely.
feedback. Yep.
Sense you would want both your editor and your beta reader to sort of be well versed in the subject matter, have read the classics in the genre, or know the horror tropes or the YA tropes.
Right, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
great. So let's go in a slightly different direction. So, as if being a literary agent and editor wasn't enough, you're also a writer yourself,
Yes,
and you
yeah.
have 3 published books out there, which is
Hmm.
fantastic. Do you have any tips for other writers about how to go from an idea to the bookstore shelves? Maybe something that you can pull from the writing manual that you wrote, The Writer's Zen?
Sure. Yeah. So the books I wrote are different genres, kind of all over the place. But I think it's important, no matter what writers are working on, that you have short-term and long-term goals and, wishful things and aspirations. And then you can really tailor what you want for your work. So I think it's important going in to say, I'm going to be working on this fiction piece. This is where I'd like to see it. What is the best way to get there? Because, depending on the genre of your work, what type of manuscript it is, who your readership will be, and what you want out of a career, you can take many different paths, which I do talk about in the book as
Great.
well.
Great. And I think people can find that manual on Amazon.
Yes. Yep. It's on Amazon and Panamoon Publishing.
Okay, wonderful.
The website. Yep.
I guess one more question. So you are also an author coach, and we're very happy to be collaborating with you now to help some of our writers. Tell us what it's like for writers to work with you. What's your style? Who are you?
So I absolutely love working with writers. So there's so many talented writers out there that it's just wonderful being able to give people direction and confidence to get their work out there and where they want it and where it needs to be. So I think that's one of my most favorite things about coaching authors, into like, no, this is good, or every first draft needs work. That's why it's a first draft. So I enjoy, collaborating and talking about where they want to be. So with me, I try to, get in the mindset of the author and really just figure out where they want to go. And as an agent, I do know the market for, a lot of different genres. And I think that it's very helpful to say, I never want to change an author's, vision, but as an agent, like, this is what the market looks like. If this is what you want, these are the paths you can take. So I think that's that's one of the best things.
Perfect. Well, I mean, this is amazing that we have access to you, who's
Thanks for having me.
an editor and an author and an author coach. It's pretty amazing. So, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm sure that at least everyone found something that was helpful in something that we talked about.
I hope so. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave with us?
I think, everyone just, you can make your work better. It's, tailor expectations, but don't be afraid to exceed those expectations. I think
Brilliant.
that's important.
I love that. Aim high. And what's the best place for writers to find you online?
Twitter is a great place to find me, and it's JNR Lit Author. So
perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. And check out her book, which is fantastic manual for writers. It's called The Writer's Zen. You can find it on Amazon. Thanks again, Jessica, so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It was great to talk to you.
All right. We'll talk soon. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye.